It's 5:30. Good afternoon, everyone. I will call this special meeting of the Fundy Albert Council for December 14th, 2023 to order. First item of business is the adoption of the agenda. The agenda for this special meeting of council for December 14th was circulated in advance. There is the proposed addition of item number 7, which is the purchase of winter tires and accessories for the 2024 Ram 2500 truck. Is there unanimous consent by council for the addition of this item to the agenda?
Yes.
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 There being, I would accept a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated. So moved by Councilor Coates, seconded by Councilor Land. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any?
Didn't know whether you.
Motion. Thank you very much. And for the record, Councillor Arrow is participating from out of the province, and you'll be able to hear him, but he's turned his camera off to ensure that he can stay connected with us. So thank you, Councillor Arrow.
Thank you.
Are there any conflicts of interest to declare in relation to this evening's agenda? There being none, I'll move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is circular materials. So the matter of whether our municipality opts in or out of the circular materials agreement requires our attention. We have until December 18th, 2024 to inform circular materials of a decision to opt in, meaning that the Southeast Regional Service Commission would continue to accept and sort recyclable materials. If our municipality decides to opt out, we can inform circular materials that we are opting out. If we do not inform circular materials at all, we will be assumed to be opting out of the service. Mr. Sebastian Hultberg gave a presentation to council at the December 5th regular meeting. A brief discussion took place where the question of whether Fundy Albert could apply for a subsidy with our local hauler for services, similar to what I believe it was the city of Moncton was receiving or is going to receive. I did reach out to Faro Waste and asked them the question. I was informed that I would get an answer back in a couple of days, and I have not received a response. I also, the person who I spoke with at Faro Waste indicated they had no knowledge of any subsidies and would bring the question to their managers, and of course, I never received a response. I also have contacted surrounding municipalities to determine whether they are opting in or out of the agreement with circular materials. The results include the city of Moncton will be opting out. The town of Riverview will be opting out. The community of Three Rivers will be opting in. The town of Salisbury will be opting in on the condition that they will be seeking legal advice. The community of Maple Hills will be opting in. The town of Tantramar will be opting out. The village of Memramcook will be opting in, and the village of Kapakadzi will be opting in. In reaching a decision, please keep in mind that if we opt in, it will mean that the village of Fundy Albert will receive a subsidy of $31.37 per household. The Southeast Regional Service Commission has provided approximate numbers of households, which range from a low of 2,580 households to a high of 2,942. Don't ask me where the range is, but it's somewhere in there. This translates into potential subsidy ranging from $80,935 to $92,291. If we opt out of the new program, we do not receive that subsidy. Developments on this matter are happening almost every day. Yesterday, I received a suggestion from the director of Eco 360 that suggests that we could respond to circular materials by stating that the municipality of Fundy Albert wishes to opt in, providing a suitable agreement can be reached between the two parties, and provided that the municipality receives all necessary approvals and consents in order to enter into agreement with circular materials. This wording was provided to the Southeast Regional Service Commission Eco 360 after a review by their legal counsel. There's a lot of information that's not available, and it seems to be shifting every day. So a motion is required by this council. There are a couple of draft motions that were prepared, and then if someone would be so kind as to make a motion, then we can enter into debate.
I'll make that motion.
Yes.
I move that the circular materials be informed that the municipality of Fundy Albert wishes to opt in, providing a suitable agreement can be reached between the two parties, and provided that the municipality receives all necessary approvals and consents in order to enter into an agreement or circular material.
So moved by Councillor Land. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Coates. Any discussion on the motion? So, Councillor Land, you made the motion. You're the first one to be able to speak to it, and please indicate whether you would support that.
I would support it in a couple of reasons, that we still have control when our garbage being picked up. And if we go with an outside provider, we don't know what the conditions are. We don't know when they'll pick it up, maybe 2 days a week, maybe 1 day a week. I think with controlling it, we have a better handle on it ourselves with opting in.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Coates, any comments, debate?
The only comment I've got is, if we can, for the former LSDs, there's a contract in place. If we could get a approval that they'll, Bureau, work with them. That's all I can say. I wouldn't wanna be in the process of having a contract canceled on us because we're not, you know. But it seems that they're working on to that now, so I agree with it. It's revenue for the Fundy Albert.
Okay, I'll answer, I guess, I do have some information that might be valuable in relation to one of your questions, and I'll wait until my turn to speak, so.
Okay.
Councillor Elderkin, do you have any?
Yeah, just a question about what you provided here. What exactly does it mean a suitable agreement reached between the two parties? Didn't they kind of lay out what was going to happen? So what part is negotiable?
Right now, as I have been informed by Mr. Holtberg, and he's the one that's in constant contact with circular materials. They have not been able to provide what the agreement will state. So we don't know exactly what the implications are. So what their legal counsel is suggesting is that any municipalities who are uncertain would use that wording to protect their interests so that there is some provision there to maybe change your mind after. And from what I understand is that if you have opted in, you can choose to opt out later on. If you opt out, you cannot come back and choose to opt in later. So that's the difference. I'll go to Councillor Jonah. What are your thoughts, Councillor Jonah?
I've changed my mind 1,000 times on this since our meeting. But what it comes down to with me is try not to inconvenience our residents any more than we have to. So with that, I am definitely in favor of opting in.
Okay. Councillor Ward Russell, thoughts?
Thoughts, so I would be concerned with regards to, because I know it's gonna take some staff planning and education to get the new, if we opt in, I guess, the education is extremely important. I'm not sure if we actually have the time right now to put that into it with the current staff that we've got.
Mhm.
I'm concerned with regards with liability to us. I know that I did ask a question with what our clean bill, I guess, the bags, the blue bags right now, what the percentage of that would be as, and I think the answer was 20%. And the goal is to get down to a 3%. That's a large number to achieve. Even over a period of time.
Right.
I think revenue is important, don't get me wrong, but I think that's, you know, we need to look beyond that. And I think there's just too much unknown at this time to proceed, so I would, I'd be willing to opt out.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Arrow.
I would continue with actually Councillor Elderkin's question, where she asked about the first part about the wording in the motion about what does it mean, a suitable agreement, and you answered that. My question is what's the other wording there really mean, where it says, provided the municipality receives all necessary approvals and consents in order to enter into an agreement? What does that mean?
Councillor Arrow, I didn't get the entirety of the legal opinion. This is just what has been provided to us as an option. So it's either we can say just broadly we'll opt in, or opt in with that provision, or opt out. That's all I can provide at this time, Councillor Arrow.
Okay. I think probably I would be voting to opt in under these conditions.
So, and I do have a couple of concerns. I've been, I've sat in on these presentations time and again to respond to Councillor Ward Russell's concern about time invested in educating and trying to get behaviors changed in relation to the contamination levels in the blue bags. That I'm informed by the director of Eco 360 that will continue to be the Southeast Regional Service Commission's mandate and responsibility. So as far as I know, there would be no onus on the municipality to provide that education. Now, that doesn't mean that at some point we would have to give up some of that subsidy to them to assist them in providing that education piece. As I understand it, for the time being, in 2024, we would get the benefit of the subsidy and business would continue as usual. As I understand it also, that the actual implementation of the agreements would not begin until May of 2024. And the idea, what I'm being told by the Southeast Regional Service Commission, is the idea is that they would be trying to develop these educational programs to get folks to comply with the requirement to try to get the contamination levels down. And I believe Mr. Holtberg also referred to the uncertainty related to how long the communities would be allowed to reduce the amount of contamination. Initially, it was like, well, it was written in there that you had to get your contamination down to 3%, which is true. And when they were pressed a little more, well, we might allow 18 months to 24 months for that to happen. My biggest concern, however, and I've said this before, and I will say it again, is that while there may be a benefit to opting out and being completely divorced from the responsibility, is that if we may not have the staff to do the education piece. I'm more concerned about what happens if the contamination levels stay the same and folks have their garbage left at curbside. So that'll mean more garbage going to the landfill, or worse yet, people will take their garbage and just dump it somewhere. And then that will become our problem, because it will not be the Southeast Regional Service Commission's problem. So for that reason, I would support opting in. So
Can I
that
ask
is,
one more question?
yes, absolutely.
Did they give any time frame as to when this contract or suitable agreement was going to come to us?
No, I didn't get that information.
So when you say it's business as usual until May 2024, assuming something's coming in the new year.
My belief is that this proviso that's in there, the suggested wording is just to buy a little bit of time to get more information out of. Rather than just let the 18th go by, we don't say anything, we're opted out automatically. And then we never get the opportunity to opt back in if it's deemed that it's to our benefits to opt in. And keep in mind, $80,000 and $90,000, I recognize that, you know, if there's a requirement for our personnel to be responsible to take any action on that, I'm being told no. And we're leaving, according to them, somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000 on the table. So that's all I know, and I'm not trying to skirt around the issue, that's what I believe will be the case. Now, if it starts in May 2024, and I've asked the question, I haven't received an answer yet, is that $31.37 from January 1st to December 31st, or will they prorate it from May, I believe it's May 24th, until the end of December? So it may not be the full amount, it may only be a prorated amount. I've asked the question, I haven't received an answer.
Because we are leaving money on the table if we don't opt in, but it's not
Yeah.
gonna take too many fines for improper garbage pickups for them to recoup that money back.
Right, and from what I've been informed by Eco360 is that Circular Materials has basically committed, and again, this is just verbally, it's not in a contract anyway. Verbally, that they're not out to hit people with $1,500 fines after day one, or after 2 months, or after 4 months. The arrangement would be for there to be a downward trend in contamination levels, and they would be looking at that over 18 months to 24 months. That's all I know. So, any other questions?
Only thing I would add too is that I know that you did reach out to Farrell, but I understand from the 3 municipalities that have opted out to date, they are receiving a credit from the hauler. So they are aware of it, they just might be, maybe not getting to the right person.
Right. And I have, I reached out to the person that looks after the contract that is in place for the community of Hillsborough, because that's the only person I have. And I have received confirmation that Mr. Daniel Bogan, the local service manager, was of the understanding that he had the say in relation to what happens in our entity, and that's not the case. It is our responsibility to make a decision, not the former local service manager. Because we now pay for the solid waste collection. And that was confirmed through Mr. Hultberg. So we do have to decide. Any other questions before I ask the motion, the question? No other questions? All in favor of the motion to opt in in accordance with the motion that was read, signify by stating aye.
Aye, John, aye.
Okay, opposed if any? Noted that Councillor Ward Russell is opposed. The motion is adopted. Thank you very much. Item number 5 is the installation of a street light. So Councillor Ward Russell has asked that this agenda item be tabled. It would require a motion before today.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion there. It's moved that the Village of Funny Albert installs additional streetlights in the intersections of Route 114 and Baxter Street and the intersection of Smithfield and Belfield. The cost is $8 a month if the pole is present, and if not, it would be $16 a month.
So moved by Councillor Ward Russell. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Jones. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Ward Russell, you'd be first.
Yeah, no, it'd be very quick. There's just been a number of requests for those 2 locations that were missed in the initial motion that was made in October.
Okay, any Councillor Jones, have anything to add?
No, not a problem.
Okay, anyone else have anything that they would like to speak to? Yes, Councillor.
There's a bus stop, on the Niagara Road. He's one of those streetlights going to that bus stop.
Oh, I would think there's multiple bus stops, but the one that I did receive a call for is a bus stop.
Because it was missing in the first round,
Correct.
right? So that will be added in.
That is the Smithfield and Belfield.
Thank you.
But there's probably additional bus stops that we haven't been contacted yet about.
Right. Anyone else have any comments? Councillor Arrow, did you have anything?
No,
you'd like to add?
no.
No?
No.
And what I would add, I believe there is one that is actually related to a place where there was a street light over top of where some mailboxes, one of those requests is over where the mailboxes are. And the light has for some reason gone out, and I think it's is it an installation or repair? Or had it been taken down, you know?
No, it's still there, it just needs a repair of a bulb.
Right, so that's, yeah. All right. Everyone ready for the question? All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye, John, aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 6. Item number 6 is about the vehicle purchase cost share. So at the December 5th meeting, council authorized the purchase of a 2024 Ram 2500 truck. It was an outstanding issue of the sharing of costs associated with the purchases of a 2022 Chev Canyon earlier in the year, as well as the Ram 2500. Both vehicles are used by the Public Works Department, so are to be cost shared only by the former incorporated municipalities. Council needs to decide whether the cost of the purchase of both vehicles is to be shared or just the Ram 2500. So prior to this discussion, I would need a motion to be introduced.
Whereas the total cost of the 2024 Ram 2500 was $41,886.65. And whereas a proportionate cost for the subunits of Alma, Hillsborough and Riverside Albert are $8,389.69, $27,240.99, and $6,255.97 respectively. And whereas the revenue from the sale of the 2007 Chev 2500 earned by the subunits Alma, Hillsborough and Riverside Albert are $150, $488, and $112 respectively. And whereas the subunits of Alma, Hillsborough, and Riverside Albert have available capital reserves of $831.93, $26,752.99, and $6,143.97 to contribute to the purchase. And whereas Alma's subunit does not have sufficient reserve funds to cover their portion, and whereas the Hillsborough subunit has sufficient funds to cover Alma's portion of $7,407.76, be it resolved that Alma, Hillsborough, and Riverside Albert subunit reserves, including GIC number 46 and 47, be transferred to general operating to cover the purchase of the 2024 Ram 2500.
So moved by Councillor Elderton. Is there a seconder on that motion? So seconded by Councillor Coates. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Elderton, you'd be first.
Nope, I agree with this purchase for me. I think I brought up my concerns of the canyon in the last meeting, and I'm okay.
Okay, Councillor Coates, any comments?
I'm good with the motion.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak?
Yes,
Councillor Lamb.
I disagree with it. If we're gonna get the municipality of Hillsborough, the village reserves to pay for the first truck. Now we're gonna get everybody to pay for the second truck. We have to set a precedent going forward of who owns what and how it's gonna be laid out going forward.
Mhm.
Hillsborough has assets, or did have. Albert had assets, and so down. If we're gonna split them, that's fine, but it's gonna continue going down the road. If there's a vehicle or a piece of equipment sold in the village of Hillsborough, going forward, that money is to come back into Hillsborough coffers. It doesn't make sense that we buy one truck with all of us sharing it and buy another truck with just reserves at Hillsborough. It's an unbalanced situation.
Mhm.
We're not doing our due diligence and operating as one unit at Spundy Albert. We got this mindset of it's mine, it's yours, it's somebody else's. And I'm sick and tired of it going forward.
Yeah.
We need to get on the ball and work together. That little White Canyon, it's got 40,000 kilometers on it. And if it would have stayed in Hillsborough previous to this, it wouldn't have had 20. It's being shared with everybody, and I'm in full support of that. But everybody's gotta pay their piece of it. And to wait, and table it and push it off is I disagree with it. Option one is right here, is to cost share both vehicles, the money's there.
Counselor, the
So-
motion has not been introduced for. option
Okay.
one.
The monies are not available to buy it from another piece of the municipality,
Right.
and that's fine. We can all work together and make this work, but we have got to set the precedent of working together. And that's
Okay,
my fault.
thank you very much. Counselor Jonah.
I'm gonna agree with Council Ann on that. I kind of touched base on our last meeting in Alma that there's too much of mine and not enough hours. So I'm gonna agree with Council Ann on his statement. I think here.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Ward Russell.
I'm good, thank you.
You good? Counselor Arrow, any comments?
Yeah, I'm just from a procedural point of view here.
Yes.
This is a motion for how a truck is being purchased. That doesn't include Alma contribution, correct?
It does include an Alba contribution, a very small contribution, but because there is a shortfall in Alma's share, Hillsborough's, the motion would include that Hillsborough's reserves would loan an amount, and Councillor Elderkin identified what the amounts are, and those would be repaid over 2 years. So in other words, it would be
That wasn't
coming-
actually, was that read as the motion though?
yes,
No,
Was it?
No,
sorry.
no, that those are the next, John is correct. That's the next two resolution is how.
Oh, okay, well, they should have been read together.
To me, this was three different resolutions. That's not, I didn't read it all as one. Should I?
No, but we'll deal with this particular resolution. There are two other resolutions, Councillor Arrow. And they were presented to council. They should have been. They were presented on a spreadsheet. And I had to take everything and. put it in one, so. So the-
Because I read all of the proposed resolutions and I'm hearing the debate.
Right,
On the only resolution that's on the table right now, I realize I guess I don't really have anything to say about this in isolation.
okay,
So I think we've somehow entered into this item a little bit convoluted and I'm not sure how it's going to end up, but on this resolution, I don't think I have a comment.
so thank you very much. From my perspective, I see both ways of looking at it. However, the vehicle that was brought into the amalgamation, the 2007 Chev, was basically broken. And it needed to be replaced, and the argument could be that it should have been replaced prior to January 1st. And that's one of the two options. It's to either cost share them both or cost share just the new one. Now, if I have to cast a vote, it would be in favor of this particular resolution. So, any other comments or questions before we vote on that particular motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, and this is only to cost share the purchase of the Ram 2500. Signify by stating aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Councilor Russell? Okay, please speak up. So opposed? Councilor Jonah? Opposed? So there's four in favor, 2 opposed, and I would vote in favor. So that motion is passed. Then we would need another resolution in terms of the cost sharing.
Whereas Riverside Albert Subunit GIC number 46 of $3,517.93 and number 47 in the amount of $15,076.85 fully matured on December 5th, 2023, and whereas the full amount of the GSC number 46 and $2,626.04 of GIC number 47 was contributed to the purchase of the 2024 Ram 2500. Be it resolved that the remaining amount of $12,450.81 and interest earned from GIC number 47 and 46 being reinvested in the GIC for the subunit of Riverside, Albert.
So moved by Councillor Elderkin. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Coates. Any discussion on the motion?
Nope, for me.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor
Just a
Arrow?
moment.
Pardon me?
I'm just rereading the motion here. So if I understand the motion, that there'll be a loan.
No, the motion was for Riverside, Albert to take their amount owing for the new truck out of their GICs.
Yeah, okay,
Pay our
Right, okay.
portion in full.
There's yet another one.
Yeah.
that
yeah,
needs to go.
that's fine. Okay, I'm in agreement.
Any other comments or questions? Not, all in favor, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're opposed, Councillor Land?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the motion is carried. There is another part of the resolution, and that's for the Alma share. Is someone so inclined to read the resolution? Otherwise, there is no resolution. Alma doesn't pay anything.
I'll make that motion,
So go ahead, Counselor.
whereas. Whereas the Hillsborough subunit advanced the Alma subunit $7,407.76. For their portion of the 2024 Ram 2500 purchase, and whereas it has been recommended by the treasurer that the Alma subunit repay the Hillsborough subunit reserve over the course of 2 years. Be resolved that the Alma subunit transfer $3,703.88 to the Hillsborough subunit reserves in the years of 24 and 2025.
So moved by Counselor Ward Russell. Is there a seconder on that motion? So seconded by Counselor Jonah. Any discussion on the motion? Counselor Ward Russell, you would have first opportunity. No. Counselor Jonah? No. Counselor Arrow, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I do on this one. So, I've heard the comments earlier about trying to share all purchases and all disposals as one, and I understand that concept. What is odd, we need to be aware of what we're about to possibly do here. It's because I don't think we've done this before in Fundy Albert, and I'm not sure it really is a wise thing to do. What this is amounting to is a subunit loaning another subunit money.
Correct.
How that's even done and tracked is a bit odd to me. And I'm wondering whether this is leading us down for other types of transactions like this. So that's one of the reasons why I find this troublesome. The second reason I find this loaning of money troublesome is the reason money needs to be loaned in this case, or is being proposed to be loaned, is because Alma doesn't have a reserve to pay for their so-called portion of the truck, whereas Hillsborough does have the reserve. But if we step back and say, well, why doesn't Alma have a reserve to pay for the truck? And the answer to that is instead of creating a reserve, which is, you see, Hillsborough does have a reserve. And you could ask, how did they get their reserve? And why doesn't Alma have a reserve? Well, Alma chose to purchase and invest in the truck that was actually used as trade-in here. I think the trade-in was roughly $38,000 on this
Yeah.
that we're buying here. There was a trade-in, and the trade-in was because the truck had value. It was the Alma truck. And it had value because Alma had chosen to put money into the vehicle and its maintenance. And the downside was it was not left to be put into a reserve. Whereas we know with the other truck that was disposed of at the beginning of the year, this would be the Canyon. Or the Canyon bought a truck that was disposed of right at the beginning of the year, which we have already heard in this meeting was end of life, essentially. So what had happened is instead of that truck being maintained or replaced at a time when it probably should have been, the money was instead kept as a reserve and not invested into the vehicle. So now we get to a situation where one subunit is going to loan another subunit money because of the choices that they were making before. And it seems troublesome to me that we want to be doing this. So I actually would agree with sentiments that I've heard from Councillor Land and Councillor Jonah during this item about, it's the one for all and all for one. And I think that moving forward, we are purchasing our vehicles as a collective, and we're disposing our vehicles as a collective, but we're not treating our reserves as a collective, clearly, because we're trying to, in this motion, loan from one subunit that has a reserve. And how they got that is, I've explained, to another subunit that doesn't have a reserve because they were investing in something that was used as the payout, that was the trade-in. So I'm against this because I think it's not where we need to be going as a community, where we're loaning money between one subunit and another to address decisions that were being made in the best interest of the communities, which are now all one. So I'm against this motion.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor. What I would add maybe to your comment, Councillor Arrow, is that the only other option in this case would be to cost share the cost of both vehicles, which would make Alma's share even more. So this is actually the cheapest option for the other two communities. I would agree that that with some of the comments, I guess where I would differ in the approach is that on January 1st, all the assets of the municipality became the assets of the municipality. And if we would have taken and time-stamped everything on January 1st, one argument would be everything became the assets of the community on January 1st. Therefore, regardless of the condition of any vehicle, regardless of what a municipality did prior to amalgamation, would not have been factored into the equation. And so what I would say that I view things a little differently in that the 2007 Chev truck, it was purchased used. It was in bad shape when it had to be disposed of. In fact, I believe the box came detached from the truck. It was no longer usable. So it's not as though it was due to be traded. It wasn't even serviceable and would have cost a lot of money. I think it was in the range of over $5,000 to put it back on the road. And so it was disposed of for that purpose. So that's what the options are. So there's really only two options here. We either cost share, and unfortunately, that's the way things work in the world of finance. We either cost share the cost of both, or we cost share the cost of just the one. And for the municipalities of Riverside, Albert and Alma, the cost sharing of the cost of the one truck, the new one, is considerably cheaper than the cost share of the both. So that's what I would add to the equation. I know that there's probably arguments for and against, but we are faced with a decision. If we do not adopt this resolution, it means that Alma does not pay anything into it, and we will have to revisit this to increase the cost share between Riverside, Albert, and Hillsborough. That's the difference. That is what we're faced with right now. So these three resolutions, even though they were separate, are all interlinked. And it's important that we deal with them that way. Any other questions on the motions? So this is the motion for, really for the subunit of Hillsborough to loan the subunit of Alma an amount of money to be repaid over 2 years. And how that's done, Councillor Arrow, how it's been explained to me, that would become the amount that needs to be repaid to the Hillsborough Reserve would show up as an expense item on the Alma subunit's budget for 2024 and 2025. And then once it's expense, it's just a journal voucher that ends up putting money back into the Hillsborough Reserve to repay the loan.
It,
So go ahead, Councillor.
Can it be, this motion be amended to opt in option number 1?
I'm not sure I follow.
The motion that's on the table is only for the Ram truck,
Right,
right? But there has been discussion on the table of 2 trucks.
right.
So I would like to make the amendment to add the second truck.
That motion's been passed. There's no amendment to be brought. So it's either this motion passes and Alma needs to repay over 2 years, or the motion fails, and then we will have to come back before December 31st to resolve this issue. This is a cost sharing problem that needs to be sorted out before year end, because we're talking about reserves, we're talking about being able to fund the purchase of a truck that's already been bought. It's unfortunate, but that's the case. Yes, Councillor Elderkin.
if in the event there was a subunit line that did have additional funds in it, can they pay it off in advance, or are they stuck with this 2 years?
No, they could pay it off. They could pay it off in 1 year, as long as the funds are there. Yeah. So potentially, and this is just theoretically, if the Alma subunit were going to have a surplus in 2024, that could be used to pay back the reserve instead of over 2 years. Does that answer your question? Okay, any other questions or discussion? Then on the question, all in favor of the motion as presented by Councillor Elderkin, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any?
I'm opposed, nay.
Okay, Councillor Arrow votes nay. The motion's carried. So thank you. Item number 7, purchase of winter tires and accessories for the 2024 Ram truck. We were recently informed that winter tires, a plow bracket, and a wiring harness are required for the newly purchased 2024 Ram 2500 truck. An estimate was obtained for the bracket and wiring harness from a local supplier who is the only local supplier of Boss plows. The cost of the bracket is $1,499.99 plus HST. The wiring harness cost is $799.99 plus HST. The Director of Operation indicates that the installation of the bracket and harness can be done by our Public Works employees, as the harness is apparently a plug-and-play unit. I'm not 100% sure what that means. The quote for winter tires for the truck, as well as steel wheels, installation and balancing, is estimated to cost $1,879.88, taxes included. A second estimate was obtained from another supplier for the tires, and the tires alone are $1,649.05, not including the steel wheels or installation and balancing. The total cost of the tires and accessories, based on the information provided, is $4,524.86, taxes included. This will require a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Go ahead, Councilor Bland.
Whereas a purchase of winter tires and plow accessories are required for the newly acquired 2024 Ram 2500 truck. Be it resolved that the village of Fundy Albert authorize the purchase of winter tires and rims for the 2024 Ram 2500 truck from Action Car and Truck Accessories at a cost of $1,879.88, taxes included. Be it also resolved that the village of Fundy Albert authorizes the purchase of a plow bracket and wiring harness for the 2024 Ram 2500 truck from Work and Play at a cost of $2,299.98 plus HST of $345 for a total cost of $2,644.98. Be it also resolved that the purchase of the equipment is to be cost shared by the subunit of Albert, Health Grove, and Riverside Albert.
Oh,
Riverside Albert, sorry.
yeah. And Alma, Riverside, Albert. So moved by Council Land. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councilor Jonah. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Land, you were first, you brought the motion forward. You get to speak first.
Okay. When we purchased the truck, it was gonna be for plowing snow over in the three communities, of course. And we don't have a truck that's small or like that size to utilize the area. The plow was down there. In my conversation with the director of operations, the amount had to be purchased. I thought the price was cheaper than what it was quoted here. And I did not know what the wiring harness on it. But as far as the wiring harness goes, all it is a plug. If these guys are gonna do it, they just pull one out, put one in, it takes seconds.
That's the plug and play.
The plug and play, it's very easily done, you could save a couple bucks if they wanna charge right up there. These guys could probably do that. Far as tires go, you have to have tires in the vehicle when they're not anyways. So that's kind of a necessity no matter what vehicle we have. So I would support this motion.
Okay, thank you. I believe Councilor Jonah, you seconded the motion.
Yeah, I must say, like, we need tires and, we do need a truck set up to do some plowing, so I'm definitely very support this motion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Coates, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, I agree, we need to go with this, but why, when we're purchasing something, we don't list what we need at the time, instead of coming with this on, somebody had to look at the truck and see it had summer tires on it, or all seasons, I should say. Then, my next question is, do we need an emergency light on it, a safety light, if we're plowing?
I do believe they already have one.
Oh.
I do believe they already have one off the old truck
Okay.
that can be used, because they stripped that old truck before it went.
If we, you know, what I'm saying is, when we put something out for a tender or quotes, let's say we maybe could get a little better deal from the dealer at the time on the, tires at least. They probably couldn't change much on that.
I was looking after the trade-in and getting the quotes at the
Yep.
time with the director of operations. And I think the trade-in value, as you've seen of the other two,
Oh,
companies,
yes, yeah,
was very high.
yeah.
And also, this truck was available as is. There was only one other vehicle available at the time, which is a lot more money. And I was taking into consideration that our funds are short and we needed to get a base truck to get started. That's what's my thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else? Any comments? Councilor
Yeah, John here. Yeah.
Yeah, just a minute. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, the only question I have is, in earlier motions, the word apportioned was being used when it was describing how the costs were being shared. And I understand apportioned to mean, as previously used, it's where the sharing is done, I think to use the word prorating according to the relative contributions of the tax base of the different communities versus the total. And that's good. Is that when we say in this motion, the cost is to be shared by the three former municipalities, is this using the apportioned methodology?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That's good, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? have any comments? Councillor Ward Russell? No? All right, on the question. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. So thank you very much. So that is all for the open session. We do have a matters to discuss on the closed session. I'll accept the motion to move into closed session. So moved by Councillor Land, seconded by Councillor Coates. All in favor of the motion, signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. So I will stop the recording.